This is ABC's World News Tonight. Here for Frank Reynolds in Washington, David Brinkley.
Good evening. In Nicaragua, the Sandinista government accused 3 diplomats in the American embassy of plotting the murder of Nicaraguan leaders and gave them 24 hours to get out of the country. The embassy said the charges were absurd, but in any case, the 3 will have to get out. Here's ABC's Barry Dunsmore at the State Department.
The U.S. Embassy in Managua has confirmed that 3 American diplomats are being expelled by the government of Nicaragua. They include Linda Feifel, the political affairs officer, David Grieg, a first secretary, and Ermila Rodriguez, a second secretary. They are accused of criminal actions, plotting the assassination of government leaders, and of trying to recruit dissidents. In Washington, the State Department vigorously denied the charges.
We reject the Nicaraguan allegations that our personnel were engaged in non-diplomatic activities, and we are protesting this action to the government of Nicaragua.
This afternoon in Managua, Lenin Serna, the head of State Security Police, presented what his government alleges is evidence for its charges. He introduced a Nicaraguan national named Marlene Moncada, whom he claimed the CIA tried to recruit when she was a secretary at the Nicaraguan embassy in Honduras, but who in fact was a double agent. Serna pointed to the tools of the spy trade Miss Moncada was allegedly given by the CIA, a portable two-way radio, special paper and pads which can be swallowed and digested, and he produced a bottle of wine which he charged was laced with lethal poison and was intended for Nicaragua's foreign minister, Miguel de Soto. Then a videotape was shown of Moncada leaving a school with a woman she alleges was her contact in Managua, Ermila Rodriguez of the U.S. Embassy. Finally, Moncada was shown retrieving a package which it is claimed she was directed to by Miss Rodriguez and which contained the poisoned wine. The assassination attempt case, as documented by the Nicaraguans, is very thin. No one denies that the U.S. tries to encourage the opposition in Nicaragua, but all that the pictures shown today prove is that an alleged double agent and a U.S. embassy official had some kind of contact. One other observation, of all the Nicaraguan officials the U.S. might wish weren't there, Foreign Minister de Soto is at the bottom of the list. He is the least powerful of the Sandinistas and the easiest for Washington to deal with. Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, the State Department.
Later tonight on Nightline, a live interview with Nicaragua's foreign minister. Dean Hinton, fired last week as U.S. ambassador to El Salvador, packed up his shirts and socks and flew back to Washington. It is thought here the Reagan White House wants to get tougher in Central America. Coming along, in Los Angeles, a verdict in the trial of slander charges against Dan Rather in the CBS program 60 Minutes. Not guilty. And the late president's son, John F. Kennedy, Jr., graduated from Brown University on the anniversary of a family tragedy.
This is World News Tonight with David Brinkley in Washington, Max Robinson in Chicago, Peter Jennings in London. World News Tonight, brought to you by Dodge.
While America has been struggling with a new set of automotive values, these 2 cars have logged over 21 billion happy front-wheel drive miles. They're simple, rugged vehicles, easy to service, fun to drive. The resale value has been solid, and they're backed by a 550 protection plan. These cars are Dodges, Dodge Omni, Dodge Aries K. We at Dodge thought that as America enters the age of front-wheel drive efficiency, you should know where it all started.
Only Dodge gives you 9/8 financing or cashback on selected new cars and trucks.
The Norelco Rotatract Razor, the exclusive patented twin-action shaving system that shaves as close as a blade. Inside, 3 floating heads. Rotatract works like twin blades to grip hair, raise it up, then razor it off without a nick or cut. Hundreds of times a second for a shave no razor can beat. Give the gift of a close shave, the exclusive twin-action Rotatract razors, only from Norelco.
In Salt Lake City, where record flooding has caused unprecedented damage, up to 100,000 commuters today used makeshift bridges to cross a river which once was a major street. And with a forecast for more rain and melting snow later this week, hundreds of volunteers turned out at a nearby canyon to pile up a mile of sandbags in an effort to prevent even more damage. Farther west, in Coalinga, California, damage has been estimated at $30 million from the earthquake which devastated the little town 5 weeks ago. However, as Stephen Gear reports, that toll will eventually go a lot higher.
It took the earthquake about 20 seconds to begin the job of destroying most of downtown Coalinga. The bulldozers are expected to finish the job 9 weeks from now at a cost of $225,000. 54 structures will go so that a redevelopment project can begin in July. This building, looking like a giant dollhouse with its interior exposed, is typical of the unreinforced masonry buildings that were so heavily damaged in the quake. It was built about 60 years ago, before earthquake safety standards went into effect. 5 newer downtown buildings will remain. Their construction served them well during the 6.5 quake. This mess was a grocery operated by Vince Mott's family for 62 years. He's going to rebuild at a cost of $500,000.
The town's going to come back. There's no getting around it. It's happened this way before. It burnt down once, and it's always came back.
In the residential areas of the city of 7,000, the damage is much less visible, but more than 300 homes were destroyed and more than 1,900 damaged. Trailers have been brought in to provide homes for the homeless, and there are still small tent cities. Lee Bishop's home is condemned, and for a month, she and her daughter, their parakeet, and their dog have been living in a tent. She has no plans to leave Coalinga.
It's my home. I've been here 11 years. Where would I go? The whole state of California is earthquake prone. Where are you going to run to?
For a few residents, new home construction is already underway. Stephen Gear, ABC News, Coalinga.
26 young soldiers were injured today at Fort Bliss in Texas when an anti-tank weapon exploded during a demonstration, spraying them with shrapnel. They were airlifted to the Army Medical Center in nearby El Paso, Texas, where 6 are now said to be in serious condition. Peter?
Well, in overseas news today, an anniversary. It is 1 year ago today that Israel invaded Lebanon. Some things have changed, others have not. In Israel a year ago, most people thought the Palestine Liberation Organization would be overcome within a month. Almost 500 dead Israeli soldiers and 3,000 Israeli wounded later, the war and the subsequent occupation of Lebanon have caused deep and bitter divisions in the Israeli society. Lebanon is still divided, but even more so. Thousands of civilian lives, including those Palestinian civilians massacred while Israel was in control, have either been lost or shattered. The Lebanese government has signed agreements with Israel for Israeli withdrawal, but the Lebanese government cannot force the Israelis to go. It controls only its capital city. That city is rebuilding, but very slowly. Law and order must still be maintained by outsiders, including U.S. Marines. The PLO is still in Lebanon, and so is Syria, which is why the Israelis say they won't leave. Perhaps only the Syrians are feeling more confident than a year ago. In Damascus, here's ABC's Al Dale.
1 year after Israeli air power humiliated Syrian air defenses by knocking out Soviet-supplied missile sites and destroying most of the Air Force, officials here are confident that the next go-round, if it happens, will not be such a walkover. For one thing, Russia has installed sophisticated SAM-5 missiles in Syria, manned them with Soviet technicians, and has pledged to come to Syria's aid if attacked by Israel. And an estimated 40,000 Syrian troops remain in the Bekaa Valley of eastern Lebanon. But perhaps just as important for her newfound confidence is Syria's position once again on center stage politically, having blocked implementation of the Lebanese-Israeli withdrawal accord. Arab leaders have begun arriving in Damascus for talks with President Hafez Assad, hoping to convince him to soften Syria's stand on the withdrawal pact, perhaps to the extent of agreeing to a partial withdrawal from the Bekaa if Israel pulls back first. Another concern is alleged Syrian interference in the internal affairs of the Palestine Liberation Organization, which has 8,000 to 10,000 fighters in Syrian-controlled areas of Lebanon. Key PLO figures accuse Syria of being behind the 4-week-old revolt against Chairman Yasser Arafat. Syrian officials insist they are trying to heal, not harm the PLO. But a widely held view among the Palestinian leadership is Syria would prefer a weak PLO in order to ensure tighter Syrian control over the Bekaa in case it wants to pull its troops back or move them against Israel. Al Dale, ABC News, Damascus.
In Moscow tonight, the Soviet leader Yuri Andropov, who has been meeting with the Finnish president, has again suggested a nuclear-free zone in the Baltic Sea. That has long been an aim of the Soviet Union, but the Scandinavian countries have always been skeptical because Soviet proposals didn't also apply to Soviet territory. On this occasion, Mr. Andropov has said the question of Soviet territory would be studied as well. In the Soviet Union, there has been what appears to be a major tragedy on the Volga River. A passenger ship which can carry 1,000 people has been involved in an accident. Major because The government has announced it quickly. It happened yesterday. There has been no reference to any survivors, and a member of the ruling Politburo has been put in charge of an investigation. As is so often the case, no other details. And in China today, another People's Congress has begun. It is destined to rubber stamp the leadership's policies. The Chinese Premier Zhao Ziyang used the occasion to say the United States is flagrantly violating its commitments to Peking by still selling arms to Taiwan. If relations are to improve, said Zhao, Washington must stop doing anything that, in his words, hurts the Chinese people's feelings.
In the beginning, man's feet walked free, but the road to civilization was paved, so man developed shoes. Soon after that, man developed athlete's foot. Now at last there's Mycotin. Mycotin cures athlete's foot. It's the only athlete's foot medicine you can buy with Myconazole, an ingredient available for the first time without a doctor's prescription. Mycotin in spray, powder, or cream. Mycotin, the end of the road for athlete's foot.
Daddy's here.
When the Ross's TV set was stolen, it was 5 years old, but Aetna didn't quibble. Aetna replaced it with a brand new model.
Aetna, I'm glad I met you.
When the Gilbert's house was destroyed by fire, Aetna settled in full within 3 days, so they were able to rebuild right away.
Aetna, I'm glad I met you.
If this is the kind of complete coverage you want, maybe it's time you met Aetna.
Aetna, I wish I'd met you.
Now, Timex brings technology to where it does the most good. Your family's health. From Timex Health Check, the home blood pressure monitor.
Most doctors say a regular blood pressure check is a good idea.
And this monitor lets me do it at home. It's easy. In seconds, I get my blood pressure and pulse.
And when those numbers look great, I feel great.
The home blood pressure monitor from Timex Health Checks. Technology where it does the most good.
After 3 days of deliberations, the Los Angeles jury today found the CBS network and newsman Dan Rather innocent in a $30 million slander suit which raised important issues of journalistic ethics and media freedom. Judd Rose reports.
For 60 minutes, it was the hour of decision. The jurors, who began deliberating on Friday, came back early this afternoon with a verdict, and shortly after, the court clerk read the decision.
We, the jury in the above entitled action, find for defendants CBS Incorporated, Dan Rather, and Stephen Glauber, and against the plaintiff, Carl A. Galloway, M.D.
In a 10-2 decision, the jurors had ruled in favor of CBS, 60 Minutes, and Dan Rather, saying they had not slandered a Southern California doctor, Carl Galloway, who had sued for $30 million. The judge had already thrown out punitive damages last week, saying Galloway failed to show CBS acted with malice. In the end, it came down to the tough standard the judge set out. To rule for Galloway, the jurors would have to decide CBS had serious doubts about the accuracy of its report.
It's the old law of supply and demand.
At issue was this report, broadcast in December of 1979, linking the doctor to a medical clinic involved in auto insurance fraud. Galloway claims CBS never talked to him or checked the accuracy of its charge. During the trial, CBS was forced to show outtakes, material filmed but never put on the air. Among the outtakes, this.
Do you ever see Dr. Galloway?
Oh, yes. He's here Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday.
Did that mean Dan Rather wasn't sure Dr. Galloway really worked at the clinic? And if so, did that show he doubted the accuracy of his own report? That was the key issue before the jurors, and today they decided Dr. Galloway had failed to make his case.
If you can vindicate incompetence, I think incompetence has been vindicated.
I don't think CBS was in trial, and I don't think 60 Minutes was in trial. I think truth was on trial, and truth triumphed.
Dan Rather, who was in court much of the past 2 weeks, was not there today, but his attorney said, I'm sure he's pleased. Judd Rose, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Officials using dental charts today ruled officially that it was indeed Gordon Kahl, the fugitive tax protester, who was killed Friday in a shootout with police at a rural Arkansas farmhouse. A county sheriff was also killed in that gun battle. In Chino, California, an 8-year-old boy who is the sole survivor of a brutal weekend attack which killed his parents, sister, and a playmate, today used sign language and wrote notes to police from his hospital bed. The boy's throat had been slashed, and it was his only way of trying to tell authorities what had happened. Ken Kashiwahara reports.
At the Ryan Ranch today, San Bernardino County investigators continued to search the ranch home looking for any clues to the mass murders. On the floor of one bedroom, bloodstains could be seen. 4 people were killed here: Frank Ryan and his wife Peggy, their 10-year-old daughter Jessica, and a 10-year-old neighborhood friend, Christopher Hughes. 8-year-old Joshua Ryan survived the attack and is listed in stable condition, and investigators questioned him today using sign language. At a news conference, the county sheriff said that all the victims were hacked or stabbed to death, but that there was no sign they were ritualistic killings.
It's just a very, very brutal murder.
Investigators say the Ryan station wagon is missing. They are looking for it and 3 white men who were seen at the ranch the day of the murders. But for now, officials say they have very few clues and are searching the area around the ranch for any evidence at all. And they are hoping further conversations with 8-year-old Joshua Ryan will provide some indication as to who did it and why. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News, Chino, California.
In the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, every athlete will be running at the speed of light. Because almost every event will be transmitted over a light wave communication system developed by Western Electric and Bell Labs. A system that converts voice, data, and images into light impulses that are carried over glass fibers and then televised to a waiting world. At Western Electric, we're helping to bring the 1984 Olympics to every corner of the globe, including the corner of your living room. Lightwave, microelectronics, software. These are the technologies behind the dream of the information age. Who will make this dream a reality? We will. We're Western Electric, working with your phone company to bring the information age home to you.
Stay right where you are, folks. You may be the winner of $1 million. This is Ed McMahon, and I urge you to watch your mail for a $1 million message from me. Look for the envelope with my picture on it from American Family Publishers. If you receive this envelope, you may already be the winner of $1 million. I will personally award this giant prize. So look for your $1 million envelope this week. Be sure it's from American Family. It could make you a millionaire.
Never thought my baby daughter would become a lawyer.
Oh, Dad, you always said I could do anything.
Well, I said it, but you actually did it.
Let's have some coffee.
Only half a cup.
But you love fresh brewed coffee.
Yes, but the caffeine.
Look.
Brim decaffeinated coffee? Well, if it tastes this rich, fill it to the rim.
Fill your cup to the rim with the richness of Brim.
House Speaker Tip O'Neill told a meeting of stockbrokers today he thought the answer to Washington's shower of red ink was to spend less on the military and to see that high-income people get no benefit from this year's tax cut. President Reagan said if O'Neill got this through, he would give him his autograph, a veto. The Supreme Court ruled today the windfall profits tax on oil is constitutional, even though a lower court said it was not. And it ruled the federal government can license nuclear power plants without considering what they will do with their nuclear wastes. Max?
Medical news. Health officials from around the nation tomorrow begin a 3-day conference in Virginia on the critical shortage of organ donors, a shortage which ironically stems from the advances now being made in organ transplants. The whole question of who lives and who dies has become not only a medical question, but now involves the media as well. George Strait focuses on that part of the issue tonight in this Medical Watch report.
Last year, approximately 300 adults and children died waiting for an operation like this one, an organ transplant.
I need you. I need the press. I mean, we do need a lung, and we need it bad, and we need it fast.
Right now, 7,000 people await a suitable organ for transplant.
We feel like we're in competition, you know, you got to get out there and actually fight to get a liver.
Mrs. Piniero's 3-year-old daughter, Justine, recently got a liver and is recovering slowly. But for every person who receives an organ transplant this year, experts say 30 will die waiting. Because of those odds, desperate families turn to the media for help.
Obviously, this is an opportunity for you, and I want you to take full advantage of it. What is it that anyone can do to help?
Billie Hall and her son Brandon gained national attention after testifying before Congress. Their search for a liver was followed nationwide by all the major news services.
There are certain things that stop you in your tracks and that attract your attention and that engage your sympathy. And we are susceptible to those things just as everyone else is.
On ABC alone, Billie Hall appeared 8 times, reaching millions. Her pleas were successful twice.
I gave him a chance to live. Everybody gave him a chance to live. Y'all gave him a chance by putting us on TV.
The press, by virtue of its ability to communicate with large numbers of people, does give an advantage to the one out of the 5,000 who needs a particular organ at a given time.
Some doctors even admit intense media interest can influence medical decisions. In Brandon Hall's case, the second liver he received was the wrong size and blood type. Hospital officials concede, without the media attention, that liver might not have been used for Brandon.
When we do become involved, people do either receive money or support, and sometimes I'm sure they will get a transplant before somebody else who's equally deserving.
5-year-old Jerry Harrison never received national attention. A few months after these home movies were taken, he died while waiting for a liver.
As far as reaching or trying to reach the national media, we didn't try. Possibly that could have caused, the death of our son.
The Harrisons say they are private people. The idea of going public with their son's illness, they say, was too distressing to seriously consider.
A lot of individuals do not know how to get the media's attention, and their children don't do as well because they don't have the same kind of advocates.
If I had to do it all over again, I think that I would be more aggressive.
Ironically, Jerry Harrison was in the same hospital, same ward as Brandon Hall. In fact, the Harrison child died just hours after Brandon Hall received his second liver transplant. Few blame the media in these cases because, according to experts, the reason so many die waiting for transplants is there is no coordinated nationwide network to locate and match potential donors with recipients. Unwittingly, the news media has been placed in the role of trying to solve that problem. But news executives say that's neither a fair nor practical solution.
It is just not possible, feasible, imaginable that the press can be the clearinghouse for the 5,000 people, if that's the actual number, who need various organs at any given time.
Another dilemma. The press has a short attention span.
You can't depend on the media to be there. As soon as these stories become less newsworthy, which they will, simply by repetition, they're going to go away. And then what do the people do?
I am Vandale Bell.
I have developed a rare lung disease.
Vandale Bell needs a lung transplant or he will die. This recorded appeal, distributed to dozens of news organizations, was intended to spark media interest in Bell's case. So far, there have been few takers.
I don't get angry at the fact that there has to be a gimmick.
You wish that it didn't have to be done that way.
Well, in a way.
It's an imperfect, often unfair system, but news executives say it will remain this way until a coordinated network of organ salvage and distribution is established. George Strait, ABC News, Washington.
Hello. I've guaranteed the Remington microscreen shaves as close as a blade or your money back. I'm just delighted. Over 99% who bought the Remington microscreen agree. Here's why. The first microscreen shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. And Remington's American-made. It costs less. Norelco's imported. It costs much more. The Remington microscreen shaves as close as a blade or your money back. What have you got to lose except your whiskers?
How about Total this morning?
Oh, we're eating cornflakes.
Hope you're hungry.
You bet.
Good. You'll have to eat 4 bowls of cornflakes to get the vitamin nutrition in 1 bowl of Total.
Really?
Really. Whole wheat Total has 100% of a day's worth of 9 vitamins and iron. Cornflakes, 25%. It takes 4 bowls to equal Total's vitamin nutrition.
Tastes great.
What happened to cornflakes?
We're not that hungry.
For the start, that's bowls apart. Total.
Audi introduces the luxury sedan voted Car of the Year by Europe's Motor Press. The new Audi 5000S, years ahead in German technology. wind tunnel designed to be the world's most aerodynamic luxury sedan. With self-diagnostic electronics, extraordinary quiet, and performance. The new 5000 from Audi, the art of engineering.
In Providence, Rhode Island today, there was a small event that recalled some very large ones. John F. Kennedy, Jr., the late president's son, graduated from Brown University today, June 6, 1983. On June 6, 1968, Robert F. Kennedy, his uncle, died in California of bullet wounds in the head. Not long after John's father died in Dallas of bullet wounds in the head. ABC's James Wooten, like all of us who recall those days, finds it hard to believe it was all that long ago.
Los Angeles, an evening in June in 1968.
Just want to say how grateful I am to him, to his wife, my sister Jean, to my sister Pat, and to my mother, and to all of those other Kennedys who came and helped me.
All those other Kennedys, he said that night, and it is difficult to remember one without the others, for they came at America en masse back then, and America in turn made collective judgments on them.
Ask not what America will do for you.
Not just on the president, or only on the attorney general, or the boyish new senator alone, but on them, the sum of them taken together, the Kennedys, on their politics and policies, on their faults and their families, on their wives and their children, sharing their joy and sharing their tears. For they had become America's family. It is no wonder then that we note today the graduation of this young man, John F. Kennedy, Jr., from Brown University, on the precise anniversary of his uncle's death, just 5 months short of the 20th anniversary of his father's murder. One more little irony to consider as we consider also how quickly all these years have flown. And no wonder that in seeing this Kennedy in this moment, we recall the other Kennedys and the other moments, remembering, of course, what we choose to remember.
It might be said now that I have the best of both worlds, a Harvard education and a Yale degree.
So, my thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there. Thank you.
As he said many times, in many parts of this nation, to those he touched and who sought to touch him, some men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not.
And so these anniversaries come and go, and millions of Americans mark them still, remembering not just the dreamers who died, but the dreams that never were. James Wooten, ABC News, Boston.
Once again, tonight's top story. The government of Nicaragua ordered 3 members of the U.S. Embassy staff out of the country, saying they were planning the murder of Nicaraguan officials. The State Department said the charge was absurd. For all of us at ABC News, thank you and good night.
America's national pastime is back on ABC. It's a rematch of last year's American League Championship Series as the California Angels go to settle a score against the Milwaukee Brewers. Or the Boston Red Sox have the Detroit Tigers in their sights as they battle for first place in the American League East. ABC's Monday Night Baseball returns tonight.